everybody, and welcome to the inaugural episode of the publicly facing Eamo and PJ show. I am PJ Hagerty. With me is the illustrious Eamon Leonard.
My name is first.
Yes, but see how I switched it up.
Eamo and PJ show, just saying.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know us, we have worked together. We've done a lot of community stuff together. Eamon and I are good friends, and once upon a time, we worked at a place called Engine Yard, where we would do a show called the Eamo and PJ Show to kind of, bring up morale and make at least two people happy every week.
You and me.
Well, besides you and me, also Lauren and Jean. Shout out to Lauren and Jean, who I really hope this show finds them somewhere, and they're like, yes, it's back. So that we know that we have at least 2 views on each show.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the idea is just kind of, do a weekly roundup of things going on in the world of tech and community, to talk about, where we've been, what we're doing, interview someone we find interesting, ask them 5 random questions, and then tell you where we're going to be in and about town. And by town, I mean Earth. I think that's a good summation.
Cool.
All right. So.
All right. Okay.
So why are we doing this? Like, a lot of people are probably going to wonder why we're doing this.
Well, everybody else is doing a fucking podcast, so
I think that's a good enough reason. I mean, basically,
honestly, PJ, I'm just doing this so I can get more screen time with you.
I miss you too.
Yeah.
So Aaron and I used to work. We used to talk like every day when we worked together, and then we had to grow up and go do different things.
Yeah.
And so now I run my own company called DevRel.io. Eamon is doing lots and lots of different things. Tell him what you're doing, Eamon.
And you blanked on that, did you? Or
no, I felt it would be more appropriate if you said it.
Lots of different things. I'm doing one thing, so not lots of different things. I'm working for a company called Scout. It's application performance monitoring for Ruby, Elixir, Python, and we're developer friendly performance monitoring. Perform better with Scout. ScoutAPM.com.
Is it Scout APM? ScoutAPM.com.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so Eamon and I get to go out in the world and maybe see things that other people don't, because we are working within the tech community, but also, reaching out to different parts. The tech community is not this single entity. Everything is the same regardless of where you go. There are different parts to tech culture, and that's kind of what we get to observe and see and bring back and talk about. And there are more interesting bits than other bits, but it's not all dudes that look like us, which is a good thing.
But to be fair, it is mostly dudes that look like us.
Sadly, that's true. Yeah. But yeah, so we'll bring you some community news. We'll bring you some tips and tricks. We'll bring you some cool interviews, and we'll try to make it entertaining, because that's what we do.
Mm-hmm. Is it?
It is what we do.
Is it? Okay.
I mean, if you think about it, at the basis of things, DevRel is tech entertainment.
No, it's not.
You don't think so?
I think it's developer relations. The hint is in the name, PJ. DevRel.
Wait, tell me more.
No, I mean, you seem to have a pretty good handle on it, so go for it.
Well, maybe it'd be better if I said it's edutainment. Because I mean, we've all gone to a conference where someone is trying to educate and relate to the developers. However, if that content is not in some way engaging, developers and anyone else in the audience will walk away.
I think I prefer to think of it as just trying to be helpful whilst wearing, the brand that you're working for on your back. Trying to be helpful being, if that product or service can't help the person you're talking to, maybe you or your organization can help them in some other way.
Right. So we're there,
and everything kind of comes from that.
Yeah.
That's at the center of everything. All the different activities kind of comes from a motivation to generally be helpful. In my opinion, anyway.
No, I'd agree that that's definitely a part of it. I think, it's kind of a key in the fact that I think the people who are in this role have a good ability to network. I don't like to use that word, but to like bring people together in different
Well,
ways.
I mean, what's wrong with that word? I mean, that is what it is.
I think that's just overused.
All right, okay.
And especially, in some of the circles that we travel in, some of the conferences that you and I go to where people are like, hey, networking is important. Let me put you together with some really cool parts of my network. And it's like, I feel like, hey, let me introduce you to my buddy Eamon is a little bit more straightforward and personable than, let me
Yeah.
tap my network and see what we can do to connect.
Why do you put on that voice when you say
What
that?
is there a voice?
You sound like some kind of a classic hits DJ.
You listen to WPJJ.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. I feel like there's a I'm not going to mince words. There's like a fucking sleaziness to it when people are just connecting people in their network to, it's like when people randomly hit you up on LinkedIn, like, yo, I saw your name on a list somewhere. We should be connected. It's like, in what way?
Well, what you're kind of touching on there is a fundamental misunderstanding of what networking is that most people have, because a lot of people take that kind of approach. They take an approach of the interactions are transactional rather than being something more transformational. And you do get that at conferences because people go with the intent. Well, everybody has an agenda, right?
Right.
And everybody's agenda is different.
Mm-hmm.
So depending on what your role is, you're going to have different agenda. So if your role is anywhere related to sales at a conference, it's about numbers. You're going to try and meet as many people as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Probably same if it's in marketing, but that's where developer relations differentiates itself, because you can't build relationships through transactional interactions. It's impossible. If
Right.
I'm just talking to you for 2 minutes and I'm looking over your shoulder trying to see who the next person I'm going to talk to is, or if I'm talking to you and I quickly kind of get a sense of who you are, if you're not the type of person I want to meet because you're not high value enough to me, whilst my motivations, like based on my job, depending on what that job is, I might have like goals and targets I have to hit, and so it's not meant to be personal. Like the person I'm talking to may not be the right person for me to speak to, but it can't help but make the other person feel like it is personal,
Right.
because you're eye to eye, you're in the same space, and if you're at a conference, then you ostensibly have something in common.
Well, yeah,
So
I was
I
going to
think
say, because the conference kind of brings you together under the umbrella of a similar topic, whether that's,
right.
a specific technology, a specific community,
Yeah,
a specific,
and I think the
ideology.
more general the conference subject matter, or the wider the audience background, or the roles of the audience or the attendees, um, then the more likely you're going to get those types of transactional interactions. I think conferences that are a kind of a staple part of a healthy, for example, open source community, people are more or less there for the same motivation. They want to grow the community. They want to push whatever the project that's attached to that community forward. They want to learn from each other. They want to build relationships.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you'll often see those events are smaller, typically in the hundreds, not the thousands. They probably are more affordable. They tend to be have less corporate backing. They tend to have more of a volunteer aspect that's reflective of the nature of the community that they're part of. And so I think if you were to encounter that transactional style of interaction at those types of events, then that is particularly greasy. That's really off-putting. This is where having a motivation around wanting to be helpful can kind of help guide you past that. Like if you turn up and your intent is to be helpful, then almost by definition you're not going to be transactional.
Right. Right. Because if your intent is to be helpful, I feel like, you're already walking in step one. If your intent is to gain something from an event or a meetup or a conference or whatever, then like you're saying, it's almost the opposite. You're definitely going to be transactional because all you're doing is walking and saying, what can I get out of this? Mm-hmm. And I think there are people in our industry who do that. I think there are people in DevRel who do that. I think it's a minority, but it's kind of like, one bad apple kind of thing. I do know people that are like very adverse to the whole idea of DevRel because of that. They're like, oh, we don't want, tech salespeople here. And it's like, well, that's not what we do.
That's a fundamental misunderstanding about the opportunity that developer relations presents.
Exactly. Which is kind of interesting because I'm going to bring this around to our interviewee. Today we're going to talk to MaryThengvall, who is she's the founder of, you know Mary. She's the founder of Per Se Consulting. She does the Community Pulse podcast, and she also literally wrote the book, The Business Value of Developer Relations: How and Why Technical Communities Are Key to Your Success. MaryThengvall, thank you so much for being on the Eamo PJ show. You're our first guest for our first episode. This is pretty exciting. So tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do? What do you say you do around here?
Sure. Thanks for having me. What is it I do around here? So these days I'm working with companies who are interested in building out technical communities, trying to figure out either what developer relations is or what their current DevRel team that they have should be doing. So working with folks on strategy, working with them to figure out their goals, their metrics, the infrastructure for their community, all of those types of things.
And you do that under the name of?
Per Se Consulting.
Okay. Yeah. Because I've noticed we've talked about this quite a bit on our podcast because we do the Community Pulse together. Mm-hmm. And I've also noticed when I'm editing those episodes, neither of us ever says the name of our company. So we're great at promoting other people's companies and terrible at promoting our own.
Yes.
You also recently published a book.
Which is a
thing with paper in it that some people are into.
Right. It's kind of wild. The Business Value of Developer Relations. It came out in October. I finally just heard from my publisher about how the book is doing and how it did in Q4. And so that was exciting. That felt like okay, I've accomplished something now. But yeah, it was a long process, a good process, but one that I'm not certain I'll do again. I had someone ask me yesterday, so what are you writing now? And I was like, nope, conversation's done. We're done.
at least for now, because I imagine writing a book is it's kind of like having a baby. I know that's weird, but people who have babies, there's a period where there's shitty diapers and everything smells bad and you're exhausted. You're like, never again am I having.
And also, you still remember labor. So
6 months later, you're like, but babies are so cute.
So for now, I am good. I also think my partner Jeremy might leave me if I decided to write another book. So that's another motivating factor.
Fair. What if you got in on writing? Because correct me if I'm wrong, you didn't initially start doing this as I'm MaryThengvall, I'm just going to write a book. It was kind of a group project where slowly you found out you were the group project.
Yeah, I think all group projects end up happening like that, but yes. But yeah, there were 4 of us. And I was actually the last one pulled in and was kind of voluntold, more or less. Nathan Harvey walked behind me and tapped me on the shoulder and went, I'm so excited we're doing this together. And I went, cool. What are we doing? He goes, I'm so excited. I can't wait. And he walked off. And I spent the next 20 minutes trying to figure out what the hell he was talking about. So yeah, it was Nathan Harvey and Jason Yee and Julie Gunderson and myself. And due to personal circumstances and professional circumstances, the 3 of them just wound up not having time. And I was working full-time for SparkPost at that point and had gotten permission from my manager and our team to treat it as a professional development time, which the company made allowances for. And so I had 1 day a week that I could set aside for writing specifically, which was huge. And so by the time the other 3 decided, look, I can't do this anymore, we had, done a brain dump of here's all of the topics we want to cover, and then taken those and put them into buckets and said, okay, cool, here's general buckets for each of these topics. And basically had a rough outline for 10 chapters. And so that was huge, because then I was able to sit down and go, okay, cool. I'm going to work on chapter 1 today. What are all of the topics I need to hit? How do I do this? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so it made it a lot easier, because I already had a basic outline for the book, and I moved things around a couple times and things changed as it went, obviously, but that was a huge support that I would not have had otherwise. Nathan also came back and read the entire book back for me and kind of went, okay, you're missing things here, add a little something here. Maybe you should tone that section about how DevRel isn't sales down a little bit so people actually keep reading past that section, you know, stuff like that. So no, the support was huge.
Time, because one thing that we have to focus on is 5 random questions.
Okay.
To those of you listening, watching, I warned Mary beforehand, this is the way it's going to work for all these interviews. 5 random questions. They will not be the same for each person. I can't guarantee that questions won't repeat, but these are the 5 random lightning round questions for MaryThengvall, episode 1. Are you ready?
I think so. I just had a sip of coffee. I think I'm as ready as I'm going to be.
All right, here we go. What's scarier, clowns or politics?
Politics, by far.
What's the capital of New York State?
Albany.
Albany. Close enough.
Okay.
What is your favorite mollusk?
Oh, the little ones that look like the hats.
Okay.
Right? The shells, they look like hats. I used to balance them on my finger as a kid. That's
Okay.
a mollusk, right?
I believe that's a mollusk. I don't really know, but we will try to find a picture. If you can send me a picture of what that is, we will overlay it on the video.
I will do that.
Who stole the cookie from the cookie jar?
Me, usually, when I was a kid.
Okay, so that's a trick question. It's actually, the answer is always not me.
Couldn't be. Not me.
And finally, any last words?
Oh, last words. I have a Snoopy clock above my desk, and it's making me very happy this morning.
Awesome. Mary, thank you so much for being on the show. Definitely go check out Mary's book, The Business Value of Developer Relations, How and Why Technical Communities Are Key to Your Success. You can also find Mary on the Community Pulse podcast, communitypulse.io, and on Twitter at Mary_Grace. Mary's a great person. Go support everything she does. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Awesome. And we're back.
Hey, oh, hey.
Hey, it's great talking to Mary. Always a good person. Always a lot of fun. But yeah, the grip on DevRel. It's funny because when you and I started working together back in the Engine Yard days, and you literally came to me and said, hey, let's create a community team. And I said, okay, that sounds great. What is that? And you said, I have no idea. We're going to make it up as we go along.
That's what I said, was it?
Yeah, I have yeah. I literally have that written down.
Well then.
Because I save all my notebooks.
Carry on.
Yeah, it says, Eamon says, I don't know what that means. We'll figure it out.
Did we?
We did. And I think tremendously successfully in the fact that I've had people tell me that they've modeled their DevRel teams off of what we did at Engine Yard.
Really?
When we first started doing this, it wasn't a thing. Definitely the term DevRel was not a thing.
No.
We decided to go with the term.
To it as evangelists or community managers.
Well, we use the term community engineers because we wanted to avoid that whole dev evangelist thing altogether.
Right. Yeah.
But I think, you were either a dev evangelist or you were a community manager. And those things at the time were very, very different things.
Yeah.
Community manager meant like, oh, you dealt with forums and maybe you took some information. Like you probably weren't out there doing talks and interacting straight up. You might not even have a tech background. And dev evangelist meant you were a cheerleader. You know, you slapped the logo on your back and everything, but you're also like, this is the way we do things at Company X, and it's the best.
Oh, right. Okay. So there was no like reflectiveness or thought process put into it. Is that the way you read it? Like, because I thought they were kind of fairly interchangeable terms back a few years ago.
No, I definitely felt like the community manager was a more sedentary role back then. And the evangelist was more the out there road warrior kind of role.
Yeah.
You know, obviously not literally, but yeah. And I think that's since changed in the past. And when did we start doing stuff? In like 2013? like
2012, 2013, yeah.
Yeah, it's like 6 or 7 years ago. And now we have a thing called DevRel, which as many of us on the DevRel Slack talk about, that is somewhat amorphous. It does not have a strict definition on what that means. One of the things that we want to do with the show is bring you news of the world. So I picked out an article for us to discuss. Is in the New Yorker. It's on April 1st, but I believe it is a legitimate article. I will say that.
Let's see. Let's have a look.
Yeah, it's called how big tech built the iron cage. But it's an interesting take. It kind of starts off with the story of this small town in the UK that decided to create a protest barrier, like linking arms and arms to prevent the Google car that maps things out to create Google Maps, prevent them from coming into the town.
Okay.
And it kind of goes on to talk about how interesting it is that, that's such a rarity, actually, considering that even at that point, like, people kind of knew that Google was gathering more information than just what was in the maps, like gathering local Wi-Fi networks and getting information on various transactions that were passing around the car as it traveled through a town. But yeah, it's an interesting article because it looks at kind of in some ways how we've given permission for these things. Like, obviously I'm extrapolating here, but it started with allowing the Google car to come in your neighborhood. Sure, no big deal. I mean, it's embarrassing that for a long time my broken down minivan was on Google Maps, but I've come to terms with that. It had like a flat tire and it was the trashiest thing in the world. But no big deal. So Google Maps drove down my street. Cool, I'm part of the world now. But fast forward to now with an Alexa or a Google Mini somewhere in your house, and kind of giving away the information of Amazon. Everything's so easy. I can just talk to this thing and get what I want. And then even more so, Facebook with its new portal technology, which unfortunately not the portal technology I was looking for. I wanted aperture science portals.
Yeah, man.
They seem safe.
Yeah.
Thoroughly tested. Infinite loops. But
I think that fundamentally is what it comes down to. Products like this only work. Products that have questionable privacy practices only work for two reasons. Number one, in order for them to be viable as a product for the organization, it needs sufficient volume of data across, I guess, diverse vectors for it to be useful.
Mm-hmm.
And in order for it to do that, you need a massive amount of people to buy into it. That's the first way it's successful. The second way it's successful is sufficient number of those people have to be okay with it. And so the reliance on the reliance part of that model is that most people are okay with it because the process helps them do something that is either important or they perceive it to be important. So, I think it's cool that this neighborhood decided to kind of come together and prevent, I guess, a car coming in on public space. I mean, I'm not sure the legality if they had even a mandate to be able to do it, but on the one hand, that's cool. But I also wonder how many of those people have used Google Maps.
Exactly.
Made to be, or use Google Street View to find, like, here's an address I'm looking for. Let me see the front.
But what does the house look like?
That building, or what does the office look like, or what was it? I'm trying to find a new dentist. What does the dentist look like? Whatever, right? So I think that's what the struggle is going to continue to be. Is I think as long as sufficient number of people still find the service useful and are okay with giving the data, it's probably a tough battle for privacy advocates to win.
Right. And I think the thing that I find most interesting about it is I've already given you permission. I'm on Instagram, for example, and I post all of my pictures to Instagram, and then Instagram uses one of those pictures in advertisement. But I've kind of silently agreed to let that happen by being on Instagram.
Well, you've also probably explicitly agreed because
with the end user
terms, right?
Yeah.
That nobody reads. So they're also relying on people to, you know, the fact that no one is ever going to read
Oh
licensing.
yeah, 28
And I
pages.
say no one, I mean virtually no one, right? There's always a handful of people that, you know.
Hey,
will-
everybody's into what they're into.
Right, but most people won't
Right.
rely on that, right?
And I mean, even in that case, Instagram made it clear. They're like, yo, your pictures are ours and we can use them as we wish.
This is a funny thing. I remember when they came out with that around 2012, a whole bunch of people said that they were leaving Instagram and going back to Flickr. And Flickr had a mobile app at the time. Maybe it was 2011, but a whole bunch of people were like, fuck Instagram. How do they get to own my content?
My shit.
Right. And, you know, 4 or 5 years later, 6 years later, every single one of those people, this is pure anecdotal, but every single one of those people that I know in my kind of social people that I interact with that said that, they're all back on Instagram and have been for a long time. So because that's where people are, there's a gravity to it, right? And you know, I suppose if you create something, whether it's a piece of art, if it's a photograph, if it's code, you don't create it in a vacuum. You want it to be consumed, you want it to be enjoyed, you want it to be experienced by other people, because that's the whole reason for it to be created in the first place.
Exactly. But yeah, so check out the article. It's pretty interesting. It kind of it wanders a little bit, you know, goes all the way into American politics and
just like us. Oh no, not that bit.
Yeah,
but yeah.
No, well, a little bit. But it's definitely an interesting read. Don't be surprised if you come away and say like, those sons of bitches are always taking my information. It's like, yeah, you kind of gave it to them. So yeah. So what else do we have on the show? Come see us. Are you going to be anywhere? Are you traveling out and about anywhere anytime soon?
Yeah, I'm at ElixirConf in Prague in Czech Republic next week. That is Monday and Tuesday, 8th and 9th of April.
Are you speaking there? Or are you just doing booth duty or?
I'll be there with two of my Scout colleagues who've come all the way over from Japan. We'll be
cool.
talking to Elixir developers who attend mostly from across Europe, to let them know what we're up to and see how we could be helpful. And then the following week, I'll be in Tokyo, and I'll be traveling from there to Ruby Kagi.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, biggest Ruby developer in Ruby, biggest Ruby conference in certainly Asia.
Yes, I think it's the biggest Ruby conference outside of RubyConf in the US.
Yeah, so that'll be a lot of fun. The whole Scout team are going to be there, something like that. We're a growing team.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So yeah. So watch, if you're at either of those two events, please come say hi.
Very cool. And I will be, I don't have anything till later this month, April 28th through May 2nd. I will be at Go To Chicago, where I will be doing a joint talk with a gentleman named Maddie Stratton from PagerDuty on observability and
their upcoming IPO, presumably.
That I don't know anything about. I just know my side of the talk.
Okay.
And also I'll be doing a meetup there. I'm getting the details on that soon. So hopefully by our next episode, I'll have more info.
Cool.
But yeah, so if you're in the Chicago area, come check that out. It's really awesome. What else? I think that's about it. We need to set up a moment of Zen, because we always used to close with a moment of Zen. And if anyone watches this, we'll consider doing another one.
No, we're not doing that. No, I'm not telling the story anymore. Don't do that. So that's not nice, PJ. That's not fraud. That's false advertising. How's my hair looking, PJ?
It looks great. For those of you who don't know, I live in Buffalo, New York, which is not a huge place, but it's a nice. It is
the chicken wing capital of the world, apparently.
It is the chicken wing capital of the world. That is true.
Just call them wings there, not chicken wings.
No, we do call them chicken wings. We do not call them buffalo wings.
What was I going to say?
But yeah, so, you know, what the hell was I talking about?
Oh, fuck. I wasn't listening. Sorry, man. Zoned out there completely.
Damn kids, get off my lawn.
Yeah.
Ah.
It's a good message. Stay in school, kids.
Stay in school, kids. That's it. End of show. But no.